So this is the City of Ann Arbor's Cable Communications Commission regular meeting for Wednesday, February 5th, 2020. I'm John Torgerson, the chair, and everyone else will be introduced as Lisa Wondrash, the city's communications director, calls the roll.
John Torgerson.
Here.
Tony Ramirez. Carol Dunitz.
Here.
David Pittman.
Here.
David Chappell.
Here.
Thomas Wright.
Here.
Bonnie Gabowitz.
Here.
Kathy Griswold. Okay.
Okay. So the next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Is there any discussion? Can we have a motion to approve?
I make a motion that we approve the schedule.
Seconded?
Second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. Third on the agenda is approval of the minutes.
I make a motion we approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
I second it.
We have 2 seconds, good. All right, moved and seconded. All right. Is there any public comment? I see that we have no visitors here today, so we'll move right on to the next item on the agenda, the CTN Report.
Okay, I'm going to begin with actually the July-September quarter, because there are actually sort of 2 reports this time. So I'll go through the activity highlights and then move on to the next one. We began using our new channel servers for playback of channels 16, which is the government channel, and 18, the educational channel. That was in July of last year, July of 19. We hosted the Art Fair volunteers orientation. It's the second year that we've done that. Gave them a space to bring them in. We recorded it so that they could post it online and people could review it then. We did our annual participation in the Townie Party and the Art Fair. We had a week-long Rec and Ed camp last summer. We also completed some training with a YMCA camp. We covered a solid waste resources planning meeting. We began coverage of the Center of the City Task Force. We also began, this probably should have been with the first one, we had the 2 of the channels, 16 and 18, the government and educational, are fully running on the new channel servers. 17 and 19 are, at that time, they were both still running on the old servers, but they were streaming through the new channel servers. And we're still in the process of transitioning some of that. It's almost mostly done. We also hosted a visiting delegation of TV professionals from Armenia, which was an interesting thing that came to us through Tom. We had our high school sports coverage began. We covered the Ann Arbor Greenbelt stakeholder engagement session and a second special joint work session of the City Council, County Board of Commissioners, and Scioto Township. Then we have the numbers for that quarter for the programming and the video on demand numbers at the end of that. And now I'll move into the last quarter, October to December for 2019. We had the joint City Council DDA meeting here at CTN, which we do every year. Our fall high school sports coverage concluded and winter coverage began. We had a special CPR training and AED training that we hosted here, which the Housing Commission staff, who are just up the street from us, they also came down and went through that training. We conducted a series of workshops for homeschooled students, which was a little unusual. Not just the students from the regular schools, but a group of them came in. We assisted with a housing affordability video. We covered the Gelman Plume Monitoring Well Location Recommendations public meeting. We also covered the 3rd joint meeting on the Gelman Plume with the county and the city council. And we had our annual Santa satellite call-in program for the kids to call in and talk to Santa. Then we have our programming numbers for that quarter for the government, public, educational, and community channels, so you can review those. And then our video on demand numbers for that last quarter, including the top hitting programs on Vibit, which was our video on demand that just carries the city meetings, and then YouTube, which contains everything, so you see a little more variety of programmings that get queued there. And then we had a request at the last meeting, I think, from David Pittman to see programming numbers for the year. So I had we put together this chart with just the monthly numbers so you could see on a month-to-month basis what the numbers look like. And so I'm not, if that satisfies kind of what you're looking for, I can do this every year, just so you see monthly how the numbers kind of fluctuate. There isn't necessarily a rhyme or reason for why things go up or down. But if you have questions about things, I can try to answer, or I'll get back to you later if I can't answer now.
Any questions?
The summer program with the YMCA and Reconnect, was that specifically for youth, or was that an all-age?
The Reconnect that program is for youth, so that was, I think they're as young as 12 and went up to like probably 16 or so. And YMCA, I'm not sure, I think they primarily coordinate the class and we assisted with it. So we brought them in here, but we also were out there at the YMCA.
Any other questions?
How did the art fair go? I mean, I noticed we only did it for 2 days this year, right?
Yes, the last year we reduced last year, so we only did it for 2 days. And we also had weather.
Weather issues.
So there was some weather impacting us during that time. The 2 days were probably on average about what we normally tend to do, but a little down. So we did have discussion afterwards, and we'll be talking about that as we get closer to summer, about possibly changing the way we do it a little bit and the hours that were there.
How about staffing issues? Did you find it was
Staffing was fine.
fine?
Yeah.
It was easier.
It was a little easier because there's one less day.
One less day to cover.
Right.
Okay. I also noticed where I know since they moved us from the wall, from the artist section over
yeah.
to the more of a center of the mall,
Yes.
where I watched it, and the backdrop, it was on the flower bed, which it would be hard to tell you were at the art fair.
Right.
Other
You don't
than-
see
other-
as many of the tents
You
and
don't
the
see
artwork
right
as you used to.
now. The year I did some camera work when I got down there, I moved the camera so because I still think they got booths to the right side of Ingalls Malls.
Mhm.
So I think where I would like to see if it could be made a point to move the camera so you do get a more of an art fair backdrop other than a generic flower bed.
Yeah.
Because
I know for part of it, and it depends at the time of day, because the way we were set up, we are facing south, so we're getting sunlight shining down. Sort of from the camera's point of view, it's from the wrong side. It's behind people for the most part. So we're trying to follow it as the day goes on to get the best view. So part of the day, at least last year and even the year before that we've been in this location, when we're shooting a little more westward, you do get to see some booths that way. Because there were some artists that were over there that came over a few times.
right.
But you're right, when for a good part of the day, we're shooting south.
Right. It's just
You're seeing the flower beds.
right, and it's I think where looking at the producer side of it, where that's part of the experience is watching the people walk behind the people interviewing
Right.
too.
Sure.
Seeing the artists and the interactions, where it draws more people in than just a flower bed.
Right.
you know.
And there is, for part of the time, but we don't have control over that, there's also the chalk artist that's there in front of the flower bed, but they're not always there.
Okay.
So sometimes you can see them working in the background, but it doesn't always work
Right.
out.
I think that the activity aspect of Art Fair and incorporating that into the video would be a good thing to think of for next year. I agree with Dave.
And also, has anybody ever give any consideration to seeing that our sponsor is the original Ann Arbor Art Fair? Has anybody considered approaching any of the other art fairs going on to see if we can maybe go to a location on their territory where we can get, because originally we were on Liberty across from the Afternoon Delight,
Yes,
and there was tons and tons of traffic.
yes.
And so I'm thinking maybe, you know, if there's an idea where we could approach the summer one or the State Street Fair Association.
Kind of see who has the best spot.
Yeah, to see if we can get back into the art fair gel
Feel.
of it all.
Yeah.
Right, other than sticking us in the Netherlands. Because, you know, it's hard to attract people sometimes. It's hard to get passerbyers
Sure.
where, you know, it comes. So that's my comments on the art
Okay,
fair.
thank you.
Any other questions or comments on the report?
I just want to make a comment about the art fair because I was involved working at the studio as a volunteer. And it was just a wonderful experience because we had so many families coming and young children speaking up and having a chance to speak. But what was so wonderful was hearing what people liked about the art fair. I think CTN was really doing a service of really communicating not only Ann Arbor citizens who were coming, but there was so many people coming from other states, coming from all around, that it was just, I think it was a great expression of what Ann Arbor has to offer.
I think that's well put. I remember when I lived out of state once before I moved back, the Today Show was here. And when I saw the Ann Arbor Art Fair, I went, I've got to get out of where I live and move back to Ann Arbor. It's really quite a good opportunity to highlight our community. And I do think that the more we can perhaps send out electronic press kits and things and get our fine coverage put on commercial media would be good. I have found by using some of the videos that I've put together using CTN materials and sending them to commercial stations because they have less budget for staff to come and film. They look at cable access TV as a great resource that allows them to give better coverage. So all they'll have to do is the intro and the outro. And what I've started doing is using Simon Says media and taking the videos, putting them into Word, and then sending them. And the response I've been getting has been really, really good. So I think if we can utilize that, we really, I think, need to highlight the great community of Ann Arbor. Because if you compare Ann Arbor to Birmingham, Grosse Pointe, Royal Oak, and a lot of other places, we have a lot going on. And I think the great work that CTN does gives us an opportunity to really not only expand people's awareness of Ann Arbor, but to bring new business to Ann Arbor, which I think the Cable Commission does and CTN do a great job of.
Okay. Any other comments or questions about the report? Okay, so that is sort of a natural segue right into our next item on the agenda, the regular business of today's meeting. The first item is the chair election for 2020. We have a couple of interested candidates. Thomas Wright would like to serve as chair and Bonnie Gabowitz as vice chair. Do we have a motion to that effect?
Could we do one at a time?
Okay.
Yeah, we need to do
All
one
right.
and then.
So Thomas Wright as chair.
Sorry,
Is there a
Kat,
motion?
I'm sorry. Did you have a
No, I
question,
was just
Councilmember?
moving.
Oh, okay.
But I'll,
So you're not a voting member of the body? So.
I won't move then.
Yeah, so I'm sorry. So it can only be one of the cable commissioners, myself and Greg, and you
Oh, okay.
are not able to make motions.
Okay, I'll make a motion. I nominate Thomas Wright for the chair.
Do we have a second to that nomination?
Second.
Okay. Second.
Thank you.
Gab. So we'll just have a voice vote. So all in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Moving on to Bonnie as vice chair. Do we have a motion to that effect?
I would like to motion.
Okay. This motion, do we have a second? Seconded. All right. So another voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right. So that motion is also carried. Congratulations to both
Thank
of
you.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the 2020 meeting schedule.
So if I can locate my notes. So we meet quarterly, and the typical schedule is February, May, August, and November. And it's the first Wednesday of each of those months at 4 p.m. But feel free to discuss an alternate time, although we would have to check with Greg and what other boards or commissions meet at that time, but that is the schedule that we've had for the past few years, if you would like to consider that.
So is there any discussion about the 2020 meeting schedule? Okay, so could I have a motion to approve that schedule?
I move that we approve the schedule for the coming year.
Great.
The quarterly schedule.
Excellent.
Second.
Seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
So I will send out calendar invites if that was helpful last year, so you can put it on your calendars. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, next item is the fiscal year 21 budget.
So this is the, and actually, let me recognize Councilmember Griswold, who is our new council representative on the Cable Commission. I'm sorry, I meant to do that, and I got distracted, so please welcome.
That's fine, and I'm replacing Councilmember Jack Eaton, and I had a scheduling conflict with another commission that I'm already serving on, and so that's why I'm here and Jack isn't.
Okay. So back to the budget. This is the second of the two-year budget. So although the city plans a two-year budget cycle, city council approves those budgets 1 year at a time. So because this is the second year, what I've given you is what the budget that was planned last year. There have been no modifications made to it other than just some slight, I think it was about $20,000 just to adjust our expenses to our revenue. But other than that, the plan is what was presented last year. And this gets rolled in for presentation to city council under the city administrator's budget. So that's the unit that we report to. Council, the city administrator presents his recommended budget to city council in April. That is then considered by city council by their second meeting in May. So this fiscal year budget would begin on July 1st of 2020. The next budget cycle is when we would be planning our two-year budget cycle, which is really then when we get into budgeting expenditures and aligning expenses with what's been planned. this year, there really isn't any modifications that are made to the plan. But I still wanted to present it and give it to you in case there are any questions, most especially as it relates to our revenue, that we are still seeing a slight downward trend. We are still modifying, tracking very carefully our expenses to stay within that. And obviously, the work that we had done last year with our subcommittee is, going to prepare us well for the next few years if we do need to make any modifications to services or revenue opportunities that we might need to pursue.
Might we continue the subcommittee upon occasion, just to kind of keep up to date as new opportunities arise?
Yeah, or we could bring those forward here too. Greg, Melissa, and I just met recently to go over the plan and make sure, based upon the budget, if we needed to bring anything forward to the Cable Commission to discuss or implement. But we certainly could have a subcommittee meeting, maybe at our next meeting, if we wanted to formalize that we'd like a meeting
Sure.
to do that once this budget is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
But
we
I do
certainly could do
find-
that.
I did find those subcommittee meetings very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And to not do it
During-
while we're in the middle of a formal meeting is far more helpful.
Okay, yeah, we certainly could do that. I'll put that down as, for the next time we meet, Tom, for us to.
Perfect.
Okay. So are there any questions? Another thing to note too is that we are moving forward in hiring a producer position. Our FTE count remains the same. That's not an additional, it's an additional producer, but not an additional staff member. So that is ongoing right now, but it doesn't change our FTE count. But it is reflective of the high demand of production requests we get at the city and throughout the community, that we have that need for more CTN coverage, not less, which is a great thing.
Is this the first time we are seeing these recommended fiscal year 2021 figures?
No, you
So we
saw
saw
them
these
last year,
last year.
because last year I presented the
that's
two-year
right.
budget. So next year, you'll see 2 years, because that's when we do our 2-year planning. And although we recommend the 2 years, city council only approves 1 year at a time. Even though we do plan a 2-year cycle, and essentially that allows us then in this off year to have more time for strategic planning and project work, so you're not constantly in a budget cycle.
I got a question about activity 2640 software.
Uh-huh.
And what kind of software are we talking about there?
So this would be our online programming software that we have, editing software. Much of our work now is software related, not just equipment. So our storage, our servers, playback.
Okay, I noticed that seems like a pretty deep cut from 25
No,
to
so
15. That's 10,000.
the recommended would be based on our actuals. So when we do our 2-year budget cycle, it's
Right.
almost 3 years in advance that you're planning expenditures for that second year. So this going from 25 to 15, I'm actually just adjusting it based on what our actuals were.
Okay.
But again, our bottom line expenses is really what we're managing to. So if we have $17,000 in software expenditures, that's still okay.
That's okay.
Just as long as my, bottom line,
Right.
I'm not exceeding what city council has authorized me to, CTN to spend.
So your goal is most likely is to come up with that least expensive budget. Is that the goal for?
My goal is to balance our expenses with our revenue.
So you take exactly what it costs each year to run this organization to real, you
We're
know,
conservative,
right. So
because I
you-
wouldn't want to go back to council mid-year because we spent more than they approved us to spend. So
Exactly.
we do forecast conservatively for revenue, and we look at our previous year revenue to determine what that forecast is.
But in order to grow,
To grow, we would
you
need,
need a bigger budget.
yes, we would need other revenue opportunities if we were going to grow. Right now, the franchise fees are what support CTN, not general fund dollars. So we're managing the organization within our revenue of franchise fees.
Okay, that's fine.
And really, that's what the subcommittee has been addressing for a
Mm-hmm.
while. But to date, there has been no need to augment.
Yes. But we do have augmenting ideas outlined.
Oh, absolutely. we
And that was
do.
the whole point of the subcommittee, was to have
Yes.
that ready should we need to trigger it, so we're not behind the ball in trying to formulate that.
Well, and I think
Yeah.
after having worked at NPR and PBS, where in some cases they didn't plan far enough in ahead,
Mm-hmm.
that the way that is being addressed here at CTN is very good.
Okay, any other comments or questions about the budget? If we're good, can we get
A motion to approve the budget for 2021. I make that motion.
we have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Budget's approved. The next item on the agenda, commission and staff comments.
I have a comment. I would like to recognize and thank you, John, for serving as chair, for also helping us through the subcommittee work. And it was time consuming, and we really appreciated you leading those efforts and getting us to the place that we needed to be with the recommendations that we have. And I really thank you for your service. I know, I don't know if everyone here knows, but John is relocating, so he'll no longer be able to serve on the commission, not only as chair, but he won't be
You can-
a
you
cable
can,
commissioner
Put
anymore.
them on Skype.
Yeah. So I wanted to truly thank you for all of your work on the commission and serving as the chair as well. We greatly appreciate
I think
it, and
we
we
should
wish
give
you
him a-
much success, you and your family, and your new journey.
Can we give him a little applause, because he certainly deserves it.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, it's been an honor to serve, and I appreciate that. Okay, well, if there are no other
I got one.
comments-
Just a comment, but I noticed you can monetize the YouTube channel now because you reached the 1,000 threshold of subs.
Oh,
But I don't know about watch time per se, because you
Okay.
gotta have 4,000 hours of watch time. But I was just curious if there's any plans to ever do that. If
we'd have to look into that.
We need
I can
to
see
look
maybe a
into the
conflict, but-
guidelines of that.
between the city
yes.
and YouTube.
As you can imagine, someone watching a city council meeting and there being advertising material that might
Right.
not necessarily
Yeah.
be conducive to the city values.
Right.
And so how that monetizing
Right.
works, we would have to look
Because
into.
you won't be losing that much money, really. So.
But it's a great point, though, that now we've reached that threshold,
Yeah,
so
1,000,
is that an
that's,
opportunity that yeah,
Takes forever to.
yeah.
It's pretty
We'll
hard.
put that on the to-do list, Dave, thanks.
Any other comments?
I'll make a motion we adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn, do we have a second? It's been seconded by Dave. And we stand adjourned.
Very good. Thank you.